interfaith service house in the country, which we set up in Chicago. This is before Avodah. This is a model of the Jesuit Volunteer Corps that's been doing it years before Avodah started, and they committed themselves to live a year in residence, multi-faith, doing justice work in Chicago, and learning how to live it as an intentional community. So I tell the stories to suggest that we would be so enriched if we could find a way to kind of stop building walls so that we stop the leakage of Jews falling out and say, let's build some bridges here because we have so much to learn from other communities. So, kol hakavod for the work you're doing.
My name is Shanzel Adler Eldridge. I'm a cantorial student, and I would just like to speak for the cantors. What I notice is every cantor I've ever met is either thinking about becoming a rabbi.
We are rabbis.
Has become a rabbi. And I invite you to prophesize into the future a little bit, or speak some wisdom about the dynamics that are shifting in congregations. And do you have words of wisdom for the cantors?
So I'm going to ask my answer to stand up. Rachel, stand up, please. So Rachel could tell her own story, but Rachel, why are you a bad example? No, but that's the point. I think that is the point, okay? Rachel, who was a member of Dat Shalom in the early years in our community, and then became our cantor, is now in the Olive Forbidden program, okay? Rachel has emerged, even before she started the Olive program, as a total co-clergy with Fred Dobb, who was my successor, and her spiritual leadership is profound in our community. And so she's simply becoming deeper and growing more and more in that process. So, look, I can't speak. Rachel's a special soul. Those of you who know her know that to be true. And no two people are alike. But nonetheless, I believe that there are hundreds of cantors in the country who have the potential to provide that kind of spiritual leadership. Rachel, you should speak to it.
Yeah, I just have one thought, which is, there's a thread that I'd love to explore. Maybe we could have lunch sometime. in our renewal community about the role of the evolution of democracy as it plays out in our religious life and in sort of continuing to roll into sectors of life, not just on a political level. But so I keep going back to this quote from Hillary Clinton, which is, "This is the age of participation."
Yep.
And I know that the kind of cantorial training I received was definitely to try to interact with the community, to get the community to sing, but it still was, the cantor is the voice and the leadership, and the community is there to listen and kind of connect in that way. And I think that on some level, our generation, this generation, and the coming generation of our people are saying, where does democracy fit into that? And I'm still figuring that out for myself.
Thank you. Last question, Fred.
Yes, Fred Gutman from Greensboro, North Carolina. Before coming back to the United States from Israel, I made Aliyah right after HUC in 1979. When I came back, one of the most important books that I read was Finding Your Spiritual Home. And it became so important to me that I visited all 4 of those shuls. It was on my bucket list, so to speak, to do. So I thank you for that. But I also just want to give a shout out to the fact that right now, as important as that book was to me, another book that I just read, and I mentioned this to David Cooper, called My Promised Land by Shavit, ranks in that category of books that have profoundly affected me and give me a way to talk about Israel. My question, though, is you didn't mention anything about how this overlays into congregations where we have a lot of interfaith families. So I was wondering about that.
I got whiplash right now between Finding a Spiritual Home, Irish Shavit's book, and intermarriage. Okay. I had a great thing to talk about the Shavit book because I have a lot to say about that, but I'm not going to go there right now. Ask me privately. As far as interfaith, this is a true story. People know who Ed Case is? Ed Case runs something called interfaithfamily.com. He's kind of one of the people doing a lot of work in the world around interfaith, whatever else. And I saw him up in New York, maybe a month after Jewish Megatrends came out. And he said, did you write a lot about interfaith? I said, actually, I wrote a lot about interfaith, but not your interfaith. I wrote about how we need to work with other faith communities. And I wrote almost nothing about interfaith marriage. And it was crestfallen, right? Because, of course, that's his Torah. So he wanted another place where he could kind of put that on his website, whatever else. And the reason I say that is that my experience with interfaith is actually the same answer. I can just go, ditto marks to a couple of answers I gave earlier, okay? It's the inclusivity question. I think that the more we bring into our community Jews who are different, okay, in any way, in terms of faith, gender, sexuality, politics, whatever else, the richer we might be able to become, even as we recognize the challenges of keeping ourselves whole in that mix, okay? One thing I didn't talk about before, one of the questions, because as much as I work both in the political realm and in the synagogue realm, it is very hard to do serious political work in congregations when most political issues are divisive. If you actually are a broadly framed community, you will not have consensus around the most important political issues at hand, and the broader and more inclusive you are, the harder it is to take positions. And yet, to your interfaith question, we had an experience, this is a true story, at Adash Shalom. Maybe year 2 or 3, we might have had 7 interfaith couples. It was actually a small number compared to what I expected might have happened. I'm not sure why that was. And I said, you guys should kind of create a group for yourselves. And they started meeting once a month as a group. I went there maybe once a year. Mostly they were self-directed, as many of the groups at Adash Shalom were. Within 3 years, 5 out of the 7 couples, the non-Jewish partner converted to Judaism. And this was not a kiruv program. What was happening was, you had an interfaith couple / family living and experiencing a robust, intentional spiritual community, offering things that they could not find either in the church world or in the synagogue world. And they said, we want to be more part of it. So I don't believe in advertising, I don't believe in marketing, I don't believe in kiruv. I simply believe in being authentic, doing something that is wholesome, sacred, spiritual, grounded. If you do that, the Jews and the non-Jews will come. Jews and non-Jews both. And that's my response to interfaith. Thank you.